Thank you for joining us today. I'm your host, Tracy Bennett. In studio with me are certified financial planners Tyler Cook and Tony Payne. And we're going to talk financial planning here. We've got a great topic for you. Beyond the Nest, power moves to make for your next wealth chapter. So this will be a fun one. Okay, so I'm going to set this up. Kids are out of the house, and for the first time in decades, your calendar, maybe your
decades,
maybe your wallet. Yeah, decades might be a stretch. Maybe your wallet feels a little bit lighter, a little bit different. I can tell you that usually doesn't happen, but phase of life opens with a whole new playbook, right? So as you're kind of diving into smart financial planning and what that looks like with an empty nest, I want to go through some questions for people who are encroaching on that time in life.
Yeah, I think the first thing you mentioned, where it might not always be true, is very accurate, because typically what we'll see is it'll switch pockets. It goes to the kids, it goes to that trip to Italy you've been waiting to take.
Yes.
So, but the point of that is, if you plan in advance and are planning for those moments, there could be opportunities where maybe you have additional savings that you could be doing if you need to catch up, at least later in life, right? And there's time to catch up for retirement, or there's other things you want to do that you've been holding off on. So the idea there is we always base somebody's plan on how they're living today. And then when those changes come, like you're talking about, empty nesters, those are the fun conversations, honestly, because now it's like, well, you were spending 20 grand on tuition. What are you going to do now with it? Because you can afford to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're aware of where you are sit today, then when those changes come, like this, in my opinion, a fun one, it opens up the door for those conversations where we get to be the yes man, like you were talking about.
So before I get into the outline questions, does somebody typically have to take a reset for a while before they transition their mind? I mean, just like we have sort of a grace period before, when someone passes away, before we start making big decisions. Is it kind of the same? I mean, it really is kind of like a death.
Yeah, no.
When the kids, you're not there yet, but I have been there, and I'm telling you, it is tantamount to losing, a family member. The feeling is, the mourning is there.
I'll never forget my dad talking about, he said, we missed he called it the pitter patters, right? Always running around the house. He's like, those are gone. We don't know what to do.
Yeah.
But I think if you have multiple kids, maybe it's more of a gradual thing, because one goes off to college, so you kind of get your feet wet there, versus if it's an only child and it's just a clean break, you're like, okay, this is different. So I think each scenario and how the family dynamic is set up might change that answer a little bit. But, it's part of life, right? And that's what continuous planning helps throughout.
Right.
It's really neat too watching it happen, because sometimes when it happens, it's really neat because it can really be a leverage device for that child or children to be able to leverage. Hey, they get out of school, maybe that first summer they're working, they've saved up a little bit. There's a timeline of when they may get out, or maybe they're staying at home. Maybe they do pay rent. Maybe they're not. Maybe they're saving. Every family's different. I don't think there's a right way or wrong way to do it. But the idea of having a plan, discussing it, being upfront, and especially if there's multiple children, having that plan up front, because usually what's done for one family member is the same thing for all of them. So once you've started with the oldest, you're going to repeat that. So I think that's really important.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I'll never forget, somebody told me too, it's not just leaving the house. It's so they're under your roof no longer type thing. It's when they're not under your wallet.
Mm-hmm.
That's really the key.
Mm-hmm.
So having the conversation, Tony, to your point about here's what's going to happen, here's the increments and timeline. You have to get out on your own, take it or leave it, kid. That's kind of where it's at. But I think we see it on the other side where the couple comes back and, it's, what are you doing today? Well, I don't know. Every day's a Saturday, right? That type of thing.
Right.
If it coincides with retirement along with the kids going to college or leaving the nest. So if you can just, again, know where you're at today, it's okay to have fun at that point, as long as you stay within the parameters that we've set.
And
right?
if helping your kids is fun,
yeah,
then so be it, right?
Absolutely.
I mean,
and we're seeing it more and more where it's boomeranged around, where it went from, that basement generation maybe of parents helping the kid to now the kids helping the parents, where parents are upstairs living and the kids are downstairs helping out mom and dad upstairs.
Yeah, that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
Well, that's arguable, man. No, I'm kidding.
That's my perfect world.
Depends being the key word, Tyler.
Yeah,
that's my perfect world. Okay, so how does somebody typically reassess their financial goals after becoming an empty nester? Is there a formula that you use for this?
Yeah, and that's part of our process built in. Every first quarter, we're going to reset the goals, whether it's the first short-term needs the next year, and then 5, 10 years and beyond. So again, having that forced conversation of, all right, what's changed? Let's talk through it. That's a lot of value, because sometimes couples haven't had the time to do it, or they just put it off. But when we get in a formal setting and say, all right, it's first quarter of the year, what are we doing? That's where those conversations really tend to show what actually is coming next, right? As far as the agenda.
Tell me what that looks like, because I'm sitting here thinking, if my spouse and I were sitting in front of you and you asked me that question, we would both look at each other and go, I don't know.
Well, yeah, the first question is, first of all, have you talked about your goals? And if to your point of like, no, we haven't, say, well, let's take 5 minutes now and start.
Mm-hmm.
What are some things on the list for this year? And we can start with personal and financial goals, right? Those are very much intertwined with how we operate. And we can get even to like health and wellness goals,
Right.
which go into all sorts of different conversations. So really just our job is to ask questions to promote the thought if it hasn't been thought of at this point. And then that's kind of where the marriage counselor comes in sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But that's fun. It's fun because we've seen how fruitful it can be. Because if you don't have the conversation, that's far worse than maybe having a little argument during the conversation.
And sometimes there's a logical progression of things. We have to clean up the house. We have to get rid of your stuff in the basement. We have to get rid of that stuff in the attic or the garage. And that leads to, hey, we could move. We could consolidate the house. We can get rid of this or that. And then we could take the next step. Then we could think about going to Florida, or then we could think about downsizing or taking that next step and, doing that next phase of life. But there's usually that logical discussion that maybe has nothing to do with finances, but that's where that marriage counselor part comes in of there's usually that logical discussion that has to take place where maybe it had nothing to do with finances, but there's that obstacle. And sometimes it's just time where we were working, we didn't have time, we couldn't put it all in on the weekends. But now that we finally have every day as a Saturday, we can finally commit to getting that garage cleaned out, getting the basement cleaned out, and finally we can unlock the house.
Does that ever happen? Get your garage cleaned out?
Oh.
30 years later, I cleaned it out and I have to clean it out again. I don't
We
know.
finally
if
clean
anybody
it out to sell it
Yeah.
and for somebody else.
Correct. That's exactly right. All right. So what adjustments should be made to somebody's investment portfolio? I'm kind of leaping here, but from my outline. So what adjustments should be made to an investment portfolio during the phase when your kids are, out of the nest and you're reestablishing your life as a couple?
You won't like it, but it truly does depend on so many variables to that. Typically, that's not a flip of a switch where you're just changing something overnight, but it's been talked about in prior meetings. It's a gradual kind of glide path scenario. So and that depends on a lot of different factors, though. Are there other income streams you're going to have in retirement? Or are you going to live off the portfolio completely, maybe with some Social Security coming in? So it's really unique for each situation on what adjustments you would make. But the key of that scenario is we're already looking at that as part of the plan. So we're proactive with the allocation. And so there shouldn't be a huge change that needs to take place. It's more of a conversation about what the next 3 to 5 years look like. But if you do it right, it's not a big switch. It's already been planned for.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let's say you're in this wonderful world where the kids are going to take care of you the whole time. I mean, you just put it all in cash or put it all in investments,
that's my
and
zen.
you
That's my zen.
just let the kids take care of it all, and you don't have to worry about it, right?
Yeah,
I'm kidding here, but there are different approaches, and like Tyler, you said it. I mean, it's all part of the plan all along the way. So the idea that the kids are out of the house may not even play directly into it, but the idea of you have different goals along the way, and that trip to Italy or that phase of we've downsizing the house, or maybe even upsizing. You know what? We've had that family home all along the way, and if we're going to have a draw to get the kids or maybe even grandkids down the way to come back and ever see us again, we're going to need something fun.
I like the way you think,
We're going to
Tony.
need something fun to get them to come back to us on the weekends or maybe on the, the holidays or in the summer. We're going to need that lake house.
Yeah.
So we might need to upsize. These are the things that we have to plan for or think about. So, that's the fun of it.
So you're kind of like, you have your little magic wand of questions that you have for people when they come in.
Exactly.
How do clients prepare for healthcare costs as they enter this stage of life? And you might think this is a complete juke in the conversation, but one thing leads on something else. You get COVID or you get sick, it kind of wrecks everything for a while. So what can you tell people are some good bullet points to think about?
Yeah, the healthcare one is very complex because, as I think most people know today, is the cost of care is increasing at a higher rate than everything else, despite the high inflation we've seen the last several years. So in our planning, we actually isolate that healthcare cost bucket to solely focus on what they can expect. And so a married couple of two, just now entering that age 65, call it Medicare age. I mean, you're looking easily $1,000 a month, easily right now in today's dollars, just for the basics, right? For the basic part of your care. So obviously anything that's outside of that's not covered could be a big hit to the plan. So we'll utilize things like HSAs. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm going to interrupt you. So backtrack. My brain didn't process that. So you're saying the cost of maintaining body and health is on the average is $1,000 a month
Yeah.
for people when they turn 65?
Medicare premium.
Yes.
Oh, gotcha.
Yep. Your Medicare, yeah. Think about your Medicare costs,
Okay.
out of pockets, things like
You're
that.
scaring me.
And
Like,
those
I
are
have 4 good years.
no, and those are typically deducted out of your Social Security premiums.
Okay.
So when you think about looking at your Social Security statement and you're looking at that number, you downloaded it from SSA.gov, remember to deduct what is going to be your Medicare premium off of that number, because before it gets direct deposited to your account, they take off your Medicare premium. So that's really important to remember that. You're not going to get that full number. Your Medicare premium comes off of that.
And then you have to have a supplement too. You have to pay out of pocket for a supplement, don't you?
You may.
If you
may.
choose to do so, yeah.
Mhm. Gotcha.
Yeah, but the healthcare conversation is huge because it's a separate cost and additional to the base needs like we talked about. And when you look at these projections that we run, it's amazing, 30 years down the road, if somebody lives until their 90s, if they're lucky to get there, the percentage of their expenses that is now healthcare, it's probably half. I mean, there's different scenarios, but the healthcare conversation really needs to center around to the Medicare piece, but a lot of that comes down to your prescription drugs you take or don't take. So there's a lot of customization that has to go into that part of the conversation. And there's experts out there that'll help guide that part of the conversation.
And you work with those experts
Correct.
every day, right?
Yep.
Okay, juking to key estate planning considerations for somebody entering into the empty nest phase. So what are some bullet points people need to think about?
Yeah, I think if you have adult children at that point, maybe it's reassessing your own documents to see, does it make sense for one of my kids to actually have a role, or maybe like an executor of a will, or
So
are they old enough to be a trustee of a trust?
that's assuming people have all of those in place,
Well,
right?
this assumes you have an estate plan. Yeah,
Yeah.
good point. Yeah, most people
Right.
don't actually.
Yeah, so
but-
let's tell people what that looks like
Yeah.
for those that are kind of going like this. What is an estate plan?
So there's we would say 4 basic documents somebody should consider. A will. That's the one like people gather around, like you see the commercials, and you get the flight miles, Tony.
Oh, thank you.
That conversation.
I appreciate that.
So there's the will, then there's the power of attorney. So there's two kinds: power of attorney for healthcare, and then a durable power of attorney, which is more on the financial side. So you've got your will, power of attorney for healthcare, durable power of attorney, and then the last one is a living will, which is I call that do you want artificial life support or not? Pull the plug, yes or no, that type of thing. So those are the 4 basics you need. Now you can get into complex trust planning and all sorts of other things, but if somebody has those core pieces, then the empty nester conversation comes in and says, all right, well, my kids probably aren't minors anymore. Those provisions don't really matter anymore in our planning. Whereas if somebody had passed away when they had minor children, you have to worry about guardians and all sorts of other layers to it. So it's a great time to reassess things. To Tony's point, if somebody's going to be moving maybe to a different state, you want to reevaluate that state's specific requirements in terms of wills and things like that, because a lot of that is down to the actual state laws, not federal.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, there's a lot to it.
The other piece, too, if you've just moved and you just downsized, how is the house owned? Is there an updated deed required? Do you need to update it to transfer on death? Did you do that previously and you haven't done it yet? Clean that up. The way that something is owned, of course, work with an estate attorney, work with your attorney on that. But the idea of if I were to pass away, is there a cleaner way to have that transfer rather than go through probate? Is there a way to have it be transferred without a lot of fees to it? That's a neat way to have things go without a lot of fees.
That's a conversation for an attorney.
Definitely.
Right. And the next thing my mind goes to is after those maybe early years of the empty nester, perhaps grandparents. You're going to become a grandparent. What do you want to do for the grandkids? Is there special planning you want to do on that piece too? So it's an ongoing thing, right? The estate planning obviously is not necessarily the most fun topic for a lot of people to discuss, but it is the most important for sure.
And not to be remiss here or say it, but for those who may not have family members, you may not have had kids, no grandkids there. So as you age, there may not be those ready people that you're thinking of as heirs to say, you know what, these ready people that I think of as my trusted people, I'm looking around and my friends are getting older. I've got who do I appoint? Who do I pick? The decisions get a little bit more tricky there, but you be deliberate. You think that through, and the earlier you think it through, that's where contingent beneficiaries, contingent executors are really important. But if you're thinking it through and keeping it current, you still can stay in control. So it's not that those decisions aren't in your power or they're not automatic there. You still can make those decisions. You just have to think them through and keep your documents current.
And speaking of that, we talk a lot about beneficiaries. We don't need to go too deep into the weeds on this, but I actually experienced this myself where there was a beneficiary that shouldn't have been on my father's pension, actually. and they were deceased. So
Mm,
it threw
yeah.
things into probate. When he passed away, it threw things into probate.
Yeah.
So make sure all of those details are aligned. You drill down and make sure you have the right inheritance set up.
And not only is it about, well, there's not a lot of money there. What's it about the money? Well, it's about the time. It's about the heartache. It's about the peace of mind. Because I know from just sitting in line at a courthouse, waiting on the documents, having the phone calls go back and forth, and some of that, it's not about the money, people. It's about those kinds of things where if you can clean it up ahead of time
Mm-hmm.
and save all of that back and forth, it is way worth it.
Oh, so worth it.
Mm.
From speaking from somebody who's been through it a few times, it's so worth it. How do clients balance lifestyle upgrades when they're headed toward empty nest syndrome? Financial discipline's a big one. You guys talk a lot about how it's you spend more in retirement than you do in while you're working. So what does it look like for somebody whose kids are moving out of the house? What kind of give us a scenario of what that means?
You mean like you're retired, you can go buy that boat and go fishing every
that
day
what-
type thing?
Do people really do that?
Oh yeah, yeah. Especially, but again, if you've planned for it, it's a great moment. I'm actually in a situation right now where I can't wait for the phone call when I get to go with somebody to watch them write the check for a vehicle that they've been waiting on for a long time.
Yeah.
So it's those fun moments. It's the ones that where you weren't told about it, and it's the, hey Tony, let me tell you something. That we're gonna get a boat, or you find out after the fact.
Right.
What I said earlier. As long as it doesn't throw their long-term plans off, it's totally fine to spend money on and live life. We all have to live life. It's not about the end destination. It's about the ride, like we talk about all the time. But you want to make sure that it's within reason. So shifting into that, maybe you want to reward yourself, the trip to Italy, whatever it might be. Our hope would be that somebody's done the proactive planning in advance to feel comfortable about doing that. In fact, I had a scenario recently where somebody had never flown first class, and I said, you know what, do it, go do it. And they went on a motorcycle trip over in Sweden. It was amazing, or Norway, I think it was. But the point being that, and they told me, Tyler, we're never going back. We're never going to go back to coach. We're always flying first class, and they're going to do it again this year.
Nice.
And we plan for it, right? That's the fun part, and it doesn't throw off their success, and they get to actually see their money. You know, it's not the money, right? It's what the money can do,
Right.
and that's what they get.
But
to
that's
live that.
from the every person's perspective. It's so refreshing. If I can just kind of do a little stroking here, but of the company, I've heard other advisors at our firm talking to clients about you've got enough, start living your life, spend your money, and I think that's so nice because I tend to be a hoarder. When you don't come from much, you tend to hoard.
Sure.
So having somebody in my ear to say, hey, it's okay, you can do that, you can take that trip, you've got what you need to do that, I think that's great.
And part of the reason why, because there's a real reason why behind this too, and that's important, is when you think about the methodology. Most parents, it's about the kids, and especially in today's economy, of course, how expensive a house is, limited job market, uncertainty, all of it. I could understand a lot of parents wanting to provide for their kids. Leave a lot for the kids. Of course, that gives certainty. It's a good thing, right? I mean, you would understand that. But when you think about it, providing for the kids, almost subsidizing them, giving them something that, dare I say, they didn't earn, giving them a lifestyle that, you know what, when they went to that school and had that travel baseball and those weekends and all that dorm that perhaps that,
Easy.
I was
well,
gonna
all right,
say,
hold on.
you're getting-
Yeah, well, I'm going there, but
you're on the ledge right
all
now.
right, I'm
Just saying.
let
You're
me
on both
finish the
si- on
thought
both
here.
sides.
Let me
Both
finish the
sides.
thought.
Too
But
soon, Tony. Too soon.
that dorm that's nicer than that luxury apartment before when they come out of school that first job can't afford, and they're sitting there and mom and dad go to visit and they see they're living worse than they were in college, and mom and dad can't help but feel a little bit of that tinge of they're struggling now. And you want to help them and give them that first down payment so they can live in that first nice house. And they couldn't save for that down payment and they're struggling. And then you think you're doing the right thing.
Yep.
And then they can't pay for that new backyard or fix the driveway. And they're just constantly behind there. And again, you want to help them with that first car, but they can't afford the tires on that nice SUV. I mean, all these things that are very well intentioned by mom and dad can be the exact things that set the children back. Where again, back to mom and dad should fly first class, enjoy it.
You're
You
talking
guys worked,
parenting 101
you
right now.
enjoyed
You know that,
it.
right?
Well, maybe I am, and maybe that's
That's
what financial
parenting
planning
101.
should be again.
Yeah.
But the basics thereof, if you can do that and enjoy it for yourself and let the kids struggle a little bit, that's part of this. And even if you could afford to subsidize them and put them ahead a little bit, it's those lessons and that struggling early on that's probably the hardest part for mom and dad. These are the things that are going to give the values that when they inherit that money later on,
Mm-hmm.
that will assure them that they're not going to make the bad decisions and blow it.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, kids can inherit a couple $1,000,000 and blow it. That's not too much that they can't blow through it, guys. That's the part where I'm coming from of when you subsidize their life all the way through, Dad.
Boy, it's hard.
Pardon me.
It's
Trying not
hard.
to, I should say.
Yeah, it's
Yep.
hard. You really. I've been through it. My kids are in their adult ages now, and it's, boy, you just want to protect them from,
Right,
and you want to keep them from hitting the same wall you did, and you want them to be comfortable and happy and have the things that you didn't have. So it's very, very hard to find that sweet spot where you're kind of teaching them while you're helping them. If you can find that.
That's the balance.
That's
right?
my expert parenting advice, Tyler.
I'm listening.
You're a different face than I
Sitting next to
am,
my brother.
but
here.
you're the pro. So, and this is kind of a good segue for the next one. So, what strategies work best for managing and transferring wealth across generations for the empty nesters out there that might be facing this?
I really think it's, and I've done this several times for people, having a family meeting about those things. And now the client or the parents in that scenario has to be willing to have the conversation. So that's step one. But if you set expectations and have a family meeting of just kind of the bigger picture on the seriousness of the situation, and then obviously the opportunity that these kids might have later in life, that always goes well. And we kind of are the mediator in those meetings sometimes to talk through things. And of course, with the parents' permission, we can lay out specifics, or we can just talk general concepts. It doesn't have to be about the numbers. But that's a key piece, is just understanding perhaps the opportunity that's in front of them, and hey, don't squander it. Like, don't fumble this.
That's assuming the family gets along. The kids get along.
Absolutely.
Then
Absolutely.
You've got that dichotomy to deal with
Yeah,
too.
absolutely. If there's tensions, which we've seen that too, then maybe it's just one sibling with the parents. But the point being is having the conversation, just like it is about setting the stage for goals and bigger picture things. If you have that conversation versus the burying your head in the sand type approach, you're going to be more successful.
Mm-hmm.
One technique or
You
trick.
always have this look when he leans into the microphone. He always has this look like he's up to something. I'm always curious to hear what he's going to say with that
I'm
expression.
flashing back to memories of when I've done this, so that's why I'm smiling, I guess, Tracy. When you sit with a family and you have the teenager and the parents ask, "What do you think we make each year?" And the teenager sits there and they're on the spot and they sit there and they respond to mom or dad with what they think the family makes each year. And you get to listen to the answer. It's amazing.
That's
It's
actually
amazing.
I mean, I'm sitting here trying to imagine that conversation. I can remember asking that when I was a teenager, and I was scolded harshly for even asking. So the fact that you're encouraging people to have that conversation is really good.
Well, and that's how much we've changed, though. Again, you think about the Instagram. I say the Instagram. No, I'm not. I'm trying to get the point, though. It's things have changed. So Instagram, TikTok. Again, I'm not trying to go back in time, but where we're at today is kids see it. They see money. There's the Sweet 16 party. There's cars everywhere. They want cars that are $100,000 when they're in high school. I mean, the idea that money is so easy now. Yeah, that's just an SUV. Yeah. That's just a new Wagoneer. I mean, come on, that's easy, Tracy. That's what kids are seeing financed for a 90-month loan almost at 7 or 8%, where they're almost buying 3 of those vehicles on mom and dad's money. And that's what we're seeing now, where they don't see what mom and dad are making. Mm-hmm. So the idea of, what do mom and dad make again? Mm-hmm. And when you hear, 800,000, 700,000, and it's like, are you kidding me? They're making maybe 100,000 here. Mm-hmm. And then when you walk that back to, okay, now what do you think we pay in taxes? Mm-hmm. Now what do you think it costs us for this house? Now what do you think property taxes are? Now what do you think it costs us to feed you? Mm-hmm. Okay, now what do you think is left? And when you walk through that and the kids' eyes start changing a little bit, that's where I see you smiling now, Tracy. Yeah. Now
I've had these
that's where the eyes on the kids go a little bit. And it's like, okay, this is now back to that Wagoneer idea. This is where you're getting that used Honda again.
You're getting the Ford Taurus.
But again, see, this is where it gets to be fun.
You're getting Grandpa's Ford Taurus.
Right, exactly.
My kid's smiling on the other side of the mic.
And that's why I smile, Tracy.
Yeah. All right. Good answers. Thank you. So how can clients optimize Social Security and retirement income at this stage? Because that is just a ball of yarn to me when we start talking about Social Security.
Yeah, it's a complex conversation. And again,
it might be for a whole other show.
Yeah, we could do a whole show deep dive for sure. But part of our coaching is to help determine when it's most appropriate to start collecting benefits. And we're talking just the retirement portion because there's different parts of Social Security. But from the retirement standpoint, we have all sorts of tools we can use to analyze things. But also, it comes down to those real in-person conversations or via Zoom to say, what's cash flow look like? What do we need? Is there enough in the portfolio to supplement lifestyle? But generally, if you can wait as long as possible to start collecting it, assuming you live to a certain age, then you're going to collect a lot more over your lifetime than if you turn it on right away when you're 62 and you can first start collecting. Because remember, you can wait, or you can start at 62, or you can wait all the way till 70.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, the current law is every single year your benefit amount compounds at 8% per year increased.
So
Just about.
it's a gamble.
Yeah. So
it's a gamble and a crapshoot.
No,
or
that's where we
game.
come in to eliminate the gambling. It's let's make some.
Because you have health conditions to consider too, right? As you're making that decision.
Yeah, so we have a good purview of somebody's situation at that point, in most scenarios, to be able to know those other variables that we need to factor in.
Mm-hmm.
But there are some scenarios where it makes sense to turn on a little bit sooner if it's enough to get you across the finish line to satisfy your cash flow needs. What you're spending. Other times, if you've got longevity on your side and you think you might live beyond 79 or 80, it might make sense to wait till 70 to turn it on, and you'll collect a lot more over the long run. So,
Mm-hmm.
worst case scenario would be, which is out of our control, by the way, is you turn it on and then pass away right away, and you didn't even collect anything you paid into. Right? That's the worst case. So, and there'd be survivor benefits for spouses and whatnot, and that's why we could do a whole show on the different levels of this. But part of our coaching is to analyze when is it best. But then the conversation with the client is always, it's whenever you want to turn it on. So tell us if it's today. That's your decision.
Mm-hmm.
And the fun of it is when you have enough, then we hate to use the word gambling with this, but there is some uncertainty to it.
Mm-hmm.
Again, when you die, we'll leave some uncertainty to how much are you going to get. Like you said, Tyler, if you die the month after you turned it on, or if you lived 100 years after, that's going to impact how much you got. But if you have a lot in your accounts and your savings, well, then how much you got may be less impactful. So that gives you a lot more flexibility to take advantage of, I could take advantage of this uncertainty a lot easier versus if I don't have a lot and this means so much more to me, that uncertainty, that's really impactful to you.
Mm-hmm.
You really don't have that chance to say, let me take a lot of risk in this.
Yeah. Our process is centered on peace of mind. And it's exactly what you're saying and that's why it depends what's going to provide that person peace of mind. So it could be turning it on right away, or it might be waiting till 70. So a lot of analysis goes into that conversation.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, and the more you have, the more tax flexibility you might have. And that's where we get to have a little fun.
That's a whole other show.
Yep.
All right. Thank you very much. We're looking to simplify, spend, and build a legacy here together. So now's the time to get intentional. We hope that you enjoyed this podcast. That's it for today. Please share with your friends and catch us on YouTube.
Boxland Media. Think big.